Since the British first came to Ireland centuries ago, almost every generation of Irishmen have tried to gain their freedom. And although they failed, they kept alive the spirit of nationalism in the country. And in 1916, Easter of that year, when 1,200 men marched into the streets of Dublin and raised the Irish flag over the General Post Office, it was the beginning of the end of British rule in Ireland. Up the Republic, they raise their battle cry. Here St. MacDermot will pray for you on high. Eager and ready, for love of you they die. Proud march the soldiers of the rear guard.
This year is not only the 99th anniversary of the great Socialist October Revolution in Russia, it's also the 100th anniversary of the Irish Easter Uprising. It was a tremendous event. When it took place, a lot of people, the ruling class, of course, could be expected to say that, but even people who were socialists called it a putsch, acts of desperados, not worthy of attention. But there was one person and one party that defended the Easter Uprising. that was Lenin and is the Bolsheviks. And he made the point that anyone who wishes to see a pure revolution shall never live to see one. The Irish were rising, and they were of different classes, they had different grievances, but the fact is that they were knocking the hell out of imperialism. And although the Easter Uprising was suppressed, it laid the foundations for the subsequent developments in Ireland, and it played a great role, a liberating role, in the struggle of the Irish people from long domination by England and subsequently by Britain. And so in this context, I'd like to call our old and present friend, Comrade Gerry MacLochlainn, who is speaking in a personal capacity.
Comrades, friends, Acharja. As an Irish Republican, I'm very, very, very pleased to be with you tonight. I have known many of you comrades for many, many years. I knew you when I was based here in England. And I also know that you were among the small group of people, because we get invited all sorts of places these days, and you'll see Republicans go into all sorts of places. You'll see them going through 10 Downing Street. But I'm old enough to remember another time that Republicans went into 10 Downing Street. I think they went through the back window, but there's another story. But can I just say that you were among the people that stood by us when it was hard to stand by us, when it was dangerous to stand by us. So we're grateful. When I was a prisoner of war here in England, I knew there were people outside like yourselves who understood, despite the propaganda, despite the lies that were told about our struggle, understood what our struggle was about, and you stood by us. Thank you for that, and I'm proud to be with you. I also just wanted to say that one of the reasons why I was very keen to come here, I've been wanting to come over and join you in some of your celebrations for the food. For the fact that I haven't been able to see you since we lost two great comrades, Godfrey and Iris. And I did send a message at the time, but I just want to take a moment here to remember them and to say that they were great revolutionaries, they were great socialists, and they were great friends, and we miss them all. So. It's always good to stand among socialists and communists, and it's especially good to stand here in Southall, because I have to say that I have a special gra in my heart for Asians and for Asia. I think the struggle of the Asian people and the struggle of the Irish people for freedom has many parallels, and that's not accidental. We're from other sides of the world, but we have an awful lot in common. The hunger strike in Ireland, you can see how it resonates in Ireland because it's part of our culture and part of what we understand as a method of struggle. And we also understand that it's a method of struggle in India and has been as well understood in India. So the connections are always there. But when I come here as well, to stand in such a distinguished platform is a great honour. And here we are with people from the Americas, people from Asia, people from Europe, people from all over standing together. And it reminds me of something, because one comrade called on Pope Francis to talk about Pope Francis. I'm just going to go one better. Because it's said that the British Empire once covered the world like we do at the moment, that there was nowhere that the English didn't rule, and they used to say that the sun didn't go down in the Irish and the British Empire, and we all know why. It's because God didn't trust them in the dark. This commemoration to bring together the 99th anniversary of the Great October Revolution and the Easter Rising is imaginative, and it's very, very fruitful, I think, because they do bring together two of the most important and significant and seismic events in the history of struggle, in the history of humanity anyway, but in the history of the struggle of humanity for a better life and for freedom. But it's a quote here from Connolly, and it's about the international struggle for socialism. And he refers to the struggle in Ireland, that he was actively preparing for revolution in much the way we heard of other people talk tonight about the tactics and strategy and struggle that people had to do in order to develop a revolutionary position. Connolly was up to his eyes in that conspiracy right the way through, trying to make sure that there was the sinews of revolution were there. But he talked about the blow that Ireland would take for freedom. And he said, starting thus, Ireland may yet set the torch to a European conflagration that will not burn out until the last throne and the last capitalist bond and debenture will be shrivelled on the funeral pyre of the last warlord. And that's what October meant. That's what the Easter Rising meant. There were people in this world that were going to band together for the interests of humanity, and we're going to ensure that capitalism and imperialism is banished from this world forever. That's a struggle that's taking our time, but we are going to finish it. The context of the Easter Rising, the context of it in Ireland, was that it came at the end of a period of renaissance for the Irish nation. Towards the end of the 1800s into the beginning of the 1900s, there were great struggles taking place for people throughout the world. But in Ireland, there was, in other places too, but in Ireland we had the rise of the unorganised labour movement, the development of the labour struggle. We had the women's struggle for the right to vote and women's emancipation, which was part and parcel of the Irish revolutionary upsurge. It was not separable from it. It was part of it, as the trade union movement and Connolly's Citizens' Army was part of it. So too were the suffragettes in Ireland, and were the Cumann na Man, and of course the Union in Inherent and other Irish revolutionary organisations of women. There was a cultural upheaval going on as well, with the struggle to to develop and restore the Irish language, to establish Irish sporting activities right throughout the country. All of these things being done to bring the nation together and to bring them together in defiance of Britain. And in that way, we were building a renaissance of the Irish nation. And then came the First World War. And in the First World War, Connolly, we saw Britain went to war, allegedly, and they claimed, it's absurd that they could say this, but then we watch some of the claims they're making about what's happening in the Middle East now. But Britain went to war, they say, to save small nations. And they asked the Irish people to join with them and help them do this, because at the end of the war, if we did that, they promised us they would give us freedom, they would give us independence. Now, at the same time, they spoke to the unionist community in Ireland, and they said to them that if they joined them in the fight for small nations, they would be protected and Ireland would not be allowed to be free. So what do we see there? We see the British state in all its glory as a pack of liars. Liars and enemies of truth, justice and the people. Throughout Europe, at the same time, we have to look at the state of the left and the socialist movement in Europe. Because after decades of the struggles that I mentioned in Ireland taking place throughout Europe, we had the growth of huge and large socialist movements. We, in the run-up to the war, had tremendous motions passed and pledges made and principles established that in the event of an imperialist war, that the socialist movement would stand firm across the world and oppose the war effort of its own country, oppose its own bourgeoisie, and support the workers of the countries that were under attack. That's what they promised. When it came to it, we had before Lenin, Leibniz, John MacLochlainn, a handful of people that we could name stood firm and stood firm the truth of that position. One of the people who stood true, of course, was James Connolly in Ireland. And James Connolly set about taking the opportunity of Britain's involvement in the first imperialist slaughter, first imperialist war, that he took the opportunity to take part in a revolutionary struggle and to attack Britain at a time of Britain's difficulties. And he coined the dictum that Britain's difficulty would be Ireland's opportunity. So the work was done and the preparations were laid, and of course the Easter Rising was to come about. The Irish Republican Brotherhood, the secret Republican movement, set up its Irish Volunteer Movement, the IRA, as it is today. Connolly had formed the Irish Citizen Army, the first Red Army in Europe. He had them in Liberty Hall, the headquarters of the Transport Union at the time. He had them based there, and of course they marched in there to join with the Irish Volunteers and seize important buildings in Dublin, including the GPO, and to declare the Republic. The rebellion was defeated. It was defeated after a short period it was the surrender of the revolutionaries. But it was Britain's position when it had crushed the rebellion, when it had destroyed the centre of Dublin. It went about and it took the 7 signatories of the proclamation and it took other leaders of the struggle and it hanged them. Shot them one by one, sometimes days apart, culminating in the murder of James Connolly, who had already been mortally wounded in the fight and was not going to survive much longer. They brought him in, strapped to a chair, sat him against the wall, and executed him sitting in a chair, already dying from gangrene in his wounds. So the hatred that Britain showed for freedom-loving people was evident there. The executions were only part of the oppression. We had the arrest of thousands upon thousands of Irish Republicans and people who were suspected of being Irish Republicans. In Wales, they brought hundreds of Irish revolutionaries and put them into a German prisoner of war camp that was emptied for the purpose. So their great war against Germany could be put to one side to deal with its own business of suppressing the working class of a country that dares to stand up to it. The heroism of the volunteers of 1916, their dedication to the cause that they had placed themselves for, that resonated throughout our nation yet again, and what we saw was another huge upsurge in the support for the right of Ireland to be free. The IRA set about its business in the best way that it could and secretly began preparing for the next phase of the struggle, which was to be an armed guerrilla campaign. That struggle continued despite Britain's claims that it had pacified Ireland, that it had sorted the issue out. And when they thought that they had done so, they had another shock coming to them. And of course the shock came with the launch of the guerrilla war, but it also came about with the election in 1919 in the aftermath of the First World War. In the first election, I believe that women were allowed to vote. Ireland took that opportunity, having declared the independence and the Republic in 1916, having declared it many times over centuries before that. It now did it in a ballot box. It demonstrated the majority support for the right of Ireland to independence, and it declared that. When that revolutionary movement was elected, the first thing they did was they held true to their promise not to be part of the oppression of Ireland and not to take part in the British Imperialist Parliament, but to establish their own parliament. And they set about passing a number of important documents that demonstrate the nature of our struggle, what is in our bones and in our hearts when we talk about our struggle, and which demonstrate that Ireland will continue to struggle in whatever way presents itself, in whatever circumstance we find ourselves, will continue to struggle for freedom and justice. But the democratic programme that was passed on the first day of the assembly, the parliamentary assembly of the Irish nation, the Dáil Éireann, It opened with the words, "We declare in the words of the Irish Republican Proclamation," and they were referring, of course, there to the Irish Proclamation of 1916. In the words of the Irish Republican Proclamation, we declare the right of the Irish people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland, to the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be indefeasible, and in the language of our first President, Padraig McPearse, we declare that the nation's sovereignty extends not only to all men and women of the nation, but to all its material possessions, the nation's soil and all its resources, all of the wealth and all of the wealth-producing processes within the nation. And with them we affirm that all right to private property must be subordinated to the public right and welfare. And that was the democratic program. The rebellion crushed. Britain thought that they'd subjugated Ireland. They thought they'd defeated us. Not the first time we've heard stuff like that. I remember Margaret Thatcher turning around and saying, as the hunger strikers died, that the IRA were playing their last card. Well, whose history now, and who's known throughout the world? Who lives today but Bobby Sands and his comrades? I remember watching George Bush standing on a warship, confidently declaring mission accomplished. Well, we know what that meant, and we know where that got them. So the fact is, you have to ask yourself, when will they ever learn? When will they? That's right. Well, maybe they will, because I think we have lessons for them, But the British could have understood one thing. If they'd listened to one of the people they'd murdered, one of the people they executed, Padraig McPearse, if they'd listened to him some years earlier, they would have heard something he'd said very profound that should have given them cause for thought. He said very simply, "The fools, the fools, the fools. They have left us our Fenian dead. And when Ireland holds these graves, Ireland will never be at peace. Ireland unfree will never be at peace." The War of Independence, which followed, went through many phases of struggle, and it ended with a counter-revolutionary victory. Unfortunately, it ended with the imposition of partition in our country, and I'm here with my comrade from the DPRK. Another nation that imperialism divided, and it is one of the greatest crimes that can be committed against a nation, to divide it. And I had the privilege of visiting Pyongyang on a number of occasions, and I've also had the privilege of visiting the border and seeing the imperialist forces that are there arrayed against the Korean people. And I just salute the courage and steadfastness of the Korean people, and I know that they will be reunited. The consequence of the partition of Ireland, Connolly warned, would be a carnival of reaction north and south. And what did we see? We saw a very conservative Catholic Church dominated, and old-fashioned Catholic Church. We're not talking about Pope Francisco or any other, maybe more enlightened people. We're talking about some of the most hypocritical and evil people that this world produced, that ran the Catholic Church in Ireland and ran the society that was created by partition. Whilst in the north, the part that was still under British rule was allowed to carry out a most oppressive, vicious regime. And I was brought up in that, and me and my comrades were forced to not do the things we wanted to do. I wanted to be a school teacher. The fool, when will I learn? But I wanted to be a school teacher. But what did I have to do? I had to go and I had to fight for my country. I shouldn't have had to. I should have been able to live. I should have been able to live a normal life. Our struggle was to go through many phases, and I mentioned just earlier one of them, but if you look at it from the guerrilla campaign of the 1919 to 21, if you look at the various phases right up to, I think, one that everybody can remember, which is the hunger strike of 1981. I was in prison at the time, and it was a very, very emotional time for Irish Republicans. But we had again the great heroism of revolutionaries and the great strength of revolutionaries, because we know that when we are standing for humanity, we're not standing alone. We know that if we face what we face, and know that we have comrades elsewhere, we cannot be defeated. And that courage was there among the hunger strikers, just as it was among the people of the Easter Rising. We've moved on to a phase of struggle through the peace process, where the Irish Republican movement and our allies have managed to create a situation where British imperialism is profoundly weakened in Ireland. We are still in struggle, but it's a different type of struggle. There's a democratic path open to us now to resolve the national question, and we intend to use that path and to exploit that path and to bring it about. Because Ireland has the right to freedom and independence, and England has never had the right to any part of Ireland, and it never will have that right. I know that the hunger strike resonated throughout the world, and I've heard many stories of effects that it's had in different countries, and we all remember, and I remember as a prisoner, hearing the words of Fidel Castro at the time of the hunger strike, when he talked to Bobby Sands, and he said, imperialists must. I'm going to forget the words now, but how could they face men who are not afraid to die? And I'm sorry, I've just forgotten the words of it. But the Fidel Castro's words on those occasions reached into our jail cells, and they were a great inspiration to us that we were being taken notice of. In my life, my time, I was inspired by many other struggles around the world, because one of the effects of being an oppressed nation, it doesn't make you narrow, it doesn't close you down, it opens you up. Oppressed people throughout the world are the easiest people to reach out to each other if they're given the opportunity and the facility to do so. And I was inspired. I know the things which went through my mind as I was a young person becoming an adult and choosing what I wanted to do with my life. I remember the Black Civil Rights Movement in America and the inspiration that we saw from the people who heroically marched in defiance of armed gangs and police and military forces that tried to prevent them from having the right to vote, having the right to assembly, having the right to jobs, and so on. I also remember at the time the Vietnam struggle and the Vietnamese struggle for freedom deeply inspired me, and I particularly remember the Tet Offensive and the tremendous feeling I saw when the Vietnamese were able to bring the freedom struggle into the streets of Saigon and to confront the imperial state. The Cuban struggle, you could not be impressed by the Cuban struggle and the tremendous victory that was achieved when they drove into Havana and liberated Cuba and drove the Americans and their sordid brothels, if you like, out of the island forever and established the dignity. I'm just going to be a wee bit cheeky too, though, and say that they did have help, because one of the great figures of the Cuban Revolution was Che Guevara, who most people must know is of Irish descent. So we're claiming a little bit of that victory. I hope you don't mind. And of course, Libya, again, is the overthrow of the ancient regime and the coming to power of Muammar Gaddafi was a great inspiration to us. The struggle in Palestine, I remember in particular, things stick in your mind like Leila Khaled, coming into Leila Khaled, tremendous revolutionary. When I was last in Gaza, because the Palestinian struggle is close to the hearts of Irish people, when I was last in Gaza, the comrades from the PFLP asked me could I stay over for lunch, but unfortunately I'd arranged to go through the Rafah crossing that time, and you have to go at the time you're told to go across there. You can't even cross it now at all, of course. And unfortunately, they wanted to invite me to have lunch with Leila Khaled, who was arriving as I was leaving. So I saw her coming in, but I didn't get the chance to meet her. But a tremendous, heroic inspiration, and people talked about the beauty of women in struggle, and Leila Khaled is just one of those iconic figures. Rather like the picture of Che Guevara, we all, I think, remember the picture of Leila Khaled. And some of the things that I know our struggle inspired, and you could just go on forever, because every time I talk to people around the world, I hear of something new, where people looked at or saw something in Ireland that they brought to their own struggle, or maybe mobilised in support of Ireland. I remember during the hunger strikes, the mothers of Palestinian prisoners in Gaza, which was under direct Israel occupation at the time, standing outside holding the pictures of the hunger strikers. So there they were in the midst of the struggle that they were facing, and they stood and they held the pictures of our hunger strikers in an act of huge international solidarity. So we remember that. India is just the numbers of examples of solidarity that can be taken there. And I just found out in the last few days, because I was reading about India and some of the things that happened there, and I only just found out about I'm going to say this wrong, but the Chittagong Raid, I think it's called, which was actually a rising by Indian revolutionaries who declared an Indian Republican Army. And on Easter, well-known Indian holiday, they on Easter seized power in this town, and it was a short-lived struggle. But the British intelligence reports at the time made it clear that the people had been motivated by and inspired by the Sinn Féiners, and that it was a revolution. I heard stories about Bengal and the struggle there, and I heard about the hunger strike that was taking place in Bengal in the early part of the 20th century, and apparently Terence McSweeney was on hunger strike at the same time in his struggle, and the Bengali movement received a telegram. They sent a message of solidarity and support to Terence McSweeney's hunger strike, and they received a letter or a telegram of support back from Terence McSweeney's sister. And I'm told, I don't know if this is true, but I'm told that the Bengali freedom fighters, as they went to battle, had a copy of that pinned inside their vests as they went into struggle, as a gesture of solidarity. I'm also told that some of these are impossible to check if they're true, but I think they tell a truth whether they're actually true in the real world or not, because there was a story that Udham Singh, who took revenge on the British state by killing. Did he kill General O'Dwyer, or was it Dyer? General O'Dwyer. He killed in Caxton Hall in London. He shot him dead, and of course he was the man behind and in charge of the Amritsar massacre.
Well, under pressure we go come, boss, my brethren try not to stay calm. Just the board of directors is the one. Just feel the tension of me ancestors, the enemy must survive, and now I'm ready to crush.
Shot with my 6 chambers, Zeppelin by his side. Stood there standing over while he wallowed down and died. Now I'm on a journey to a Brixton prison cell. Tell the judge and jury that I did my time well.
What I was told by Indian people in London, older people, now I've been unable to clarify or check this out, was that the common belief was that the gun that he used was supplied to him by the IRA in London. Now, I have no idea if that's true, but
That is true.
it's, yeah, okay, well, there we are. It's just an example of solidarity. It's an example of how the feelings are. And I just could go on about India forever, because the connections just keep going. United States, we see huge things in the United States. Funny enough, one of the things in the United States was the establishment of the Indian Freedom League, and there were attempts to supply weapons to Calcutta and all, coming from the United States, and it was Irish Americans who were in the middle of it, trying to assist that. Marcus Garvey, the great black leader in America, he renamed his hall, he renamed his building, his headquarters, Liberty Hall, and he renamed it in memory of, or not in memory of, but in tribute to Liberty Hall, the transport union building that Connolly had held in Dublin and that he marched out from to launch the Easter Rising. We also hear about Ho Chi Minh, and that he was in London in exile at the time of McSweeney's funeral, and that he observed and attended and observed the funeral. And it could go on, and there's stories from China, there's stories from all over the world of people in struggle reaching out to Ireland, and of course we are determined to reach back out to all the people who reached out to us. So the internationalism that I talk about that's what I wanted to come and talk to you about more than anything, was internationalism, because I want to assure you that our struggle for freedom, it will not end with the liberation of our country. It cannot end with the liberation of our country, because no nation can be free when there's another nation enslaved. So I want to just quote one more thing, because one of the other things done by the first Dáil when it met in 1919, one of the first things it did was it sent a message to the free nations of the world. And I just want to read one aspect of that, because I think it's important. Ireland today reasserts her historic nationhood the more confidently before the new world emerging from the war, because she believes in freedom and justice as the fundamental principles of international law, because she believes in a frank cooperation between the people for equal rights against vested privileges of ancient tyrannies, because the permanent peace of Europe can never be secured by perpetuated military domination for the profit of empire, but only by establishing the control of government in every land upon the basis of the free will of a free people. And the existing state of war between Ireland and England can never be ended until England is definitely evacuated by the armed forces of England. So I think if we look at the socialist movement in the colonial world, in the third world, as some people call it, we look at the Cubans, the Vietnamese, the African struggles, we look at that, when they came together with Tricontinental Alliance and so on, they also came together to push for a unity of former colonies and other oppressed peoples to form the non-aligned movement, and to build on the equality and equalness of the nations of the world. And we called for that, as I say, in the democratic programme. Counter-revolution was to succeed in the terms of the Irish Civil War, but that is in our bones. It's every time we have gathered to map out our future, that's what we have had in mind. And I can guarantee you that as a socialist and as an Irish Republican till the day I die, I will dedicate myself and commit myself to supporting all peoples who are struggling for freedom throughout this world. It is absolutely vital. And I'm going to, starting thus, Ireland might yet set the torch to a European conflagration that will not burn out until the last throne and the last capitalist bond and debenture will be shrivelled on the funeral pyre of the last warlord. That hasn't happened yet. It's our job to make sure it happens. So let's go out of here and let's ensure that it happens. Comrades, thank you very much.
Now you know why for weeks we've been pressing Gerry to come and address this meeting. Gerry, thank you so much. Comrades.
Hark the march